Well, with the refugee portion of it, I would say portion, because interestingly and sadly, the refugee portion is a very, very small portion of the whole immigration scheme. So for example, every year there is a 250,000 people target of letting into Canada as permanent residents. 60% of these 250,000 people belong to the economic class. These are the ones that are the skilled workers, the business entrepreneurs, the provincial nominees, so the creme de la creme in terms of qualifications, in terms of suitability, in terms of financial capability to come and settle in Canada. So that's 60% of the people that are let in. Yeah, for sure, because this is a federal eligibility requirement and or criteria, and a lot of the times the professional regulatory bodies are provincial in jurisdiction. So yeah, so that's a whole you know, and we could probably talk a little more about that in terms of categories. So there's the economic class, which is about 60%, and then there's the family class, which is about 25%, if not 30%, well, something like that, for the ones that are being sponsored, spouses, children, or parents and grandparents. So if you have a family relative here, then you become a permanent resident by sponsorship. And then the remaining 15% is where the refugee, convention refugee stream comes in, and the humanitarian, compassionate, and the minister's permit, and the really special, you know, considerations. And in this 15% that's shared by other subcategories is where the, what Khadija was talking about, where even within that there's the hierarchy of differentiation as well of the refugee groups. So there are those that are sponsored by a group of 5 individuals already in Canada and sign an agreement with Immigration Canada to say that they're going to provide materially and financially and socially and whatever to the family that they would want to come here. Then a refugee family can come to Canada as a permanent resident under the convention refugee theme. And these families will have to be first determined outside as eligible asylum seekers. Maybe at a refugee camp or a UNHCR certificate given to them, and you know, things like that. And this is, so a group of 5 can do that. A church can be a sponsor, so they can also do that. And then there's the other category that's called GARs, the government assisted refugees. So there are no, you know, basically sponsors waiting in Canada. This is the government of Canada trying to get them here, and organizations like the New Canadian Centre get funded to help this specific category of refugees, the GARs, where the federal government gives them money for housing and food and shelter for a year, hoping that they transition into the economic labor market. The first year is a federal, basically, support money, with the expectation that that will be enough time for them to become labor ready with English and everything else. But realistically not, I have yet to see someone who's been prepared and ready to go into the labor market after 1 year. And so then they become clients of the provincial Ontario work system if they still need support. So, so the first year federal, and then the provincial support kicks in after 1 year. Then they are landed immigrants. And then there's the other stream where people just show up at the border on their own and claim asylum. And so they are here inside Canada as refugee claimants and waiting for their hearing. And at the time that they are refugee claimants, then they don't have federal money because they are not government-assisted refugees. They are what in my mind is the private refugees or the individual refugees. There's no sponsor, church sponsor. There's no family. They just came on their own, and so they are eligible to be on Ontario Works as refugee claimants. This is the limbo land. Like, you don't know if you're gonna continue to be inside Canada and be approved as a permanent resident later on, or are you going to be sent back? And so this is like where you're the fiddler on the roof thing. Like, you just maintain your balance and don't, fall off. And there have been a number of situations where the person, while waiting for the determination of their refugee claim, has become very successful in integrating. If they needed to learn the language, they learned the language. They got a job because they could also apply for a work permit. And some people even ventured into opening their own businesses. A number of restaurants in town were done, that way. It was difficult, it was challenged because, the banks would not approve their loan for capital, things like that, because there's no permanent social insurance number. But a number of supports in the community were available and invested with them, so they were successful that way. And yet, after having had a business or a successful 3-4 years working, Immigration Canada or the Immigration Refugee Board came up with the result that, nope, you can't be, because the reason for the claim is not really valid. We didn't think it was legitimate, or that, the war or whatever political instability that you were referring in your claim has been over now, so it's all well and good back there now, so you can go. And then, of course, then you'd have to challenge that and say, well, sorry, you took your time, giving me your decision. And look, I have made my life here. And, then you'd build the positive and then do the humanitarian and compassionate. Mm-hmm. And say that for 4 or 6 years, those are 4 to 6 years of my adult life that I didn't know what will happen to me. I just made the best I could do of it, and here I am. And happily enough, the Immigration Refugee Board judges or whoever determines these cases approve the claims. No, so if the person has not shown any inroads into successful integration and whatever indicators of those are there, then you'd face deportation. You're going to be ordered to leave and given a day to appear at the now the CBSA and basically facilitate your leaving Canada. And then they would do some kind of assessment as well in terms of the risks of you going back and what would happen to you, and what could possibly happen to you if you are sent back. Yeah. So all this, the process of getting your foot established in Canada, from having that immigration document, like a piece of paper that establishes you first, and then of course the other soft but more meaningful indicators of how you are established and the level of your integration and your sense of belonging takes time. It's expensive. In a lot of cases, it actually needs and demands for a community to help that happen, for a person, for a family.